Education, tension discussions. A while back, Claire created this stunning whole cloth quilt on her domestic machine, but afterwards we've discovered some tension issues on the back. You would be able to see on the photographs that the top thread, which is a darker green thread, is pulling through to the back. So how can you fix this issue after your quilt is done? You could of course rip it all out. You could paint over the problem area, could add a false backing fabric to cover the issue, or you can leave the quilt as is. But how do we avoid this in your next project?
Alright, so this is a little sample that I've put together to give you an illustration of different tension issues. So I've got 6 blocks. If you look at the first block here, the tension looks lovely from the top. But if I turn it over, you will see in places that there are little white points. So I've put 2 different threads in my machine here. I have yellow in the bobbin and I have a creamy color in the top, just so that you can pick up more easily the problem or the issues going on with the tension. So on this one, I can see the top thread at the bottom. And it actually, what I did was I tightened the bobbin thread very much, I made it very tight so that it was pulling hard. It's actually pulling the top thread down underneath. So in this case, I would need to do one of 2 things. I either need to reduce the bobbin tension, or I need to increase the top tension. So I always think of tension as a tug of war. There's 2 teams, a bobbin team and a top thread team, and they're pulling. If the knot that is meant to be in the middle of the fabric is showing closer to the top team, that means the top team is pulling too hard. I need to reduce the number of players in that team, so I need to reduce the tension. The second example here, you can see the opposite. The white thread is lying very flat on the fabric, and I can see eyelashes, they're called, of yellow bobbin thread on the top. So if I look at this one, what is happening? The bobbin thread is being pulled to the top, which means the top thread is too tight. So the easiest in this situation is going to be to reduce my top tension. I could also play with the bobbin tension, but if I'm satisfied that I've done my drop test or I've used my tower gauge, my bobbin tension is fine, then rather only turn the top tension. The third one here, I've tried to get my ideal tension. So it looks nice from the top. If I turn it over, it looks good on the bottom too. I don't see any points of white thread. So that means I've got a balance between the two, the top and the bottom tension, and the knot between the 2 threads is actually sitting in the middle of the batting somewhere. So that one's good. The bottom row, I kept that top tension exactly the same, but I wanted to illustrate to you problems that people often phone me and say, oh, got a major problem with my tension today. So if you look at this one here, then it looks quite good from the top, but when you turn it over, oh boy, have we got some problems. Now when I see that kind of thing, I immediately think that the thread is not through the tension gauges. That is my initial thought. So here the bobbin thread is pulling the top thread really through to the back. So it shows me there's virtually no top tension. So number 1 is to make sure I floss that thread through the tension gauges and check that that's sorted. The middle one here, it also looks good on the top, but when I turn it over, I got that eyelash effect, but it's not as bad. So what I did here was I skipped the check spring that's on the tension disc. So you have a little spring that bounces up and down as you make each stitch. If you don't have your thread through that tension spring or the check spring, it doesn't flick the thread back up nicely to form the stitch, and you end up with that. So that's another quite common issue. My final one here looks very much like the one where my top tension was too tight. But remember, I haven't changed anything between the ideal tension and here. I haven't changed anything on my tension gauge. What happened here is that the thread came out of the tension spring on the bobbin case. So then the bobbin was spinning freely with nothing holding it back, giving it any tension. So it's got loose bobbin tension, which means that the top thread is pulling my bobbin thread to the top. So any issues that you've got with your tension, first of all, check your threading top. Make sure it goes through all the thread guides and around the tension discs properly and the check spring, and check that your bobbin case is also threaded correctly.
We also have the tower gauge available that helps you set your bobbin tension at a specific number, which is a great starting block. Video link available on how the tower gauge works, and you can order yours through Claire for the M and the L bobbins. Our product of the month.
So Claire, I really want a long arm machine. I love to quilt and I need more throat space.
Okay.
But I don't have a room to put a 3.6 meter frame in. What's my options?
You want a machine that's on a frame?
I think so, yes.
Okay, cool. The thing of having a machine on a frame is you've got a lot better stitch regulation because you've got an analog kind of system with encoder wheels that move. So it's more accurate than the optical stitch regulators you get on the sit-down machine. So that's your big advantage. Another advantage to being able to use a frame is that you don't have to baste your quilts. What a bargain.
I know.
Yeah, so you can use your leader cloths to pin your quilts on. So if you go with a normal Studio 2 frame, which are the normal kind of frames, they come in two different size options. You can get a 12-foot frame or you can get a 10-foot frame. But they don't come in 12-foot sections. They come in 3 4-foot sections.
Okay.
Or if you go for the 10-foot frame, then you've got 2 4-foot sections and 1 2-foot section. So you could, say for instance, buy the 12-foot frame but only use 2 of the 4-foot sections and make an 8-foot frame. So you've got an option there. If that's still too big for you, then we have the little foot frame that's sitting right in front of us.
And this is what we're standing
in front
at
of
now.
us. Yeah. So this is a 5-foot option, which means it's that little bit more manageable if you've got smaller space. It's in your spare room. You don't have a dedicated room that can be taken up entirely by a frame. So the advantage is space. Your second advantage is also price. Because it's smaller, it's not as costly to make, and it's also not as costly for us to ship it. So you do have a cheaper option. It does have a few drawbacks in that you still have to baste your quilt, and you can stitch a certain area but you don't roll on your quilt. You then have to take it out and reposition it. So it's a little bit like a really large embroidery hoop, if I can put it that way.
Okay, but that's already going to help me a lot from my little machine that I'm working on now.
You've got nice throat space. This is the Simply 16, so it's a 16-inch machine. That doesn't mean that you've got 16 inches of space to quilt with though, because you've got to remember you've got the pole in the back here. So it's going to be a little bit less, but you have significantly more space than you would normally have. Your other option is to put an Avante 18 onto the little foot frame. So that will also go. The bigger machines don't work so well with it, but you can do the Simply 16 and you can do the Avante 18 on the frame.
And when Christmas comes along and husband asks what he can get me for Christmas, can I eventually add robotics to the system as well?
Oh, next year for Christmas?
Yes.
For sure. You can add the Pro Stitcher to it. So it is a little bit more tricky to work, or not tricky, let's not say that, but there's a few differences in the way that you'd work with your Pro Stitcher. But yes, if you want to quilt blocks or you want to quilt borders or all over pattern, you can do it.
Oh, fantastic.
And you can quilt a king size quilt on this frame. It just means you're going to work section by section and you're going to unclip it and reclip it back in to be able to do the next section. We are going to post you a nice link to a video that Vicky Hoth, one of the STU educators at Hqsa, has recorded. So it gives you all the details of how exactly you work with this frame. And how you move your quilt and how you clip it in, all that kind of stuff. We figured it didn't really make sense for us to go all over it again, given that Vicky's already done such a great job. So you can look there. We're also going to add a link for you for a PDF file for this sales sheet, whichever way around you like it, that gives you more information about the Sweet 16 machine but also about the little foot frame. So it tells you the size requirements here of the little foot frame compared to a 10 or 12 foot studio frame. So it just gives you a bit of additional information, which is really cool. And then we want to tell you it's summertime. We like summer. I'm not a winter girl, so we're celebrating summer with a promotion.
Yes.
So if you order a Simply 16 with the little foot frame, we've got a nice bundle of extra goodies for you. So there's a ruler base that you will get for free. And that is essential if you're going to use rulers. So if you've got the ruler base, then of course you need a few rulers.
Of course you need rulers.
So there's a little starter pack of 3 different rulers. There's the Versatool, there's the mini scallop, and there's the skinny. So those would come with it as well. And then finally you would get a sure foot, which is the extra deep ruler foot that makes using all of these gadgets so much easier. So this is included in the deal as well, to the value of around 4,000 Rand.
Ooh,
So I think it's
got my attention.
It's a nice incentive to get you thinking. You've got all the information in the PDF, and you've got the video to watch. And if you need, you can come and visit us, and we'll help you make that decision.
Absolutely, and spend your money.
And come and install it. When are we coming?
When are we coming?
Great. Thank you.
Our quilting queen of the month.
So we've decided to introduce a new thing, or new feature if you like. We're enjoying listening to how people are looking to the handy quilter community. What is going on? People want to be part of that community and that feel the fun that we're having and enjoying ourselves. So when we run our boot camps once a year in September, and after the first boot camp, nobody can exactly remember how it happened. But the teachers became known as quilting queens. So second boot camp came around, and Janine presented everybody with crowns or tiaras. The new teachers, the overseas teachers, people coming from Handy Quilter, and our own teachers, if you were there giving classes, you were a quilting queen. So I had the idea, now we want to expand our network of queens, let's put it that way, amongst our Handy Quilter owners and our awesome quilters. So if you've got a nice picture of a quilt you've been working on and you want to share it with us, we'd love to receive photographs of it, preferably if possible with you in the picture, and then a close-up of the quilt, so that we can show everybody exactly what's going on. And we will choose a favorite for that, and you will be the quilter of the month, the queen quilter of the month. And we will be sending you a little prize, and it's just a little bit of fun. There's no pretension involved. It's just tongue-in-cheek and a bit of fun. We just want to make it nice to be part of the quilting world. So our first honorary queen of the month is the lovely Hqsa. She stitches with a Sweet 16. She's had it for quite a number of years, and her confidence and her quilting is just going up in leaps and bounds. So we're going to post a beautiful picture of a quilt that she's recently completed, that was part of a course with Helen Godden, who's also one of the Handy Quilter ambassadors, and say congratulations Hqsa, your prize is in the post. And anybody else who has quilts that they'd like to show us, please email photographs to me or to your agents in your area. They'll forward them on to us, and then we'll make a selection for February of who's our latest queen of the month. And guys, you could also be a king of the month. So if you've got an awesome quilt to show us, get your photos in.
Technical tip. Technical tip of the day. Cleaning of your quilting table, equipment, machine, bobbin case is all very important. We drop threads, or threads get dropped or broken off from our quilts and how we work, and it lands on your quilting table. And if you're lucky, your machine will just run over it, but you will feel that bump in the road as you custom quilt your best feather in the border. And if you're not so lucky, then these threads that lie around on your table will get caught up in the wheels. So it's important to clean off your table and make sure you get rid of all of these little fluffs and bumps on your surface. So what I do routinely, microfiber cloth is my friend, and I like to use a bit of rubbing alcohol to get rid of the oil residue that sometimes gets stuck on tracks. It's important that you note not to use something like Handy Andy, which is abrasive and will scratch your surfaces. So just a bit of rubbing alcohol is non-abrasive and it clears up quickly, leaves no residue behind, and you will actually feel the difference in your tracks. And this is from a machine that gets cleaned regularly. So you can imagine if you've never done this before, for instance, you're going to have quite a bit of cleanup shock that happens. So do this often. Do this after every big quilt or 2 quilts. Decide on an interval and clean off your tracks. Okay? And you need to do that also on your horizontal tracks, on your bar, on your carriage where your machine runs. Clean it off nicely so there's no residue, no thread buildup, no dust particles sitting around that inhibits your machine from moving. Then I also just dip a little earbud into my alcohol and clean off your wheels. So just run the earbud inside of the wheel when you move your machine back and forth, and you'll also see quite a bit of buildup that happens. So do this regularly. That's going to take care of all the bumps in the road as you quilt and sew. Make sure that you remove periodically your machine from your carriage. Remove any caught threads that gets tangled in the wheels. So cleaning the bottom wheels of the carriage, use your cloth, hold it against the wheels, and just move your carriage back and forth. And you will feel all the residue, all the build-up coming off. And then you can see this machine's going to get a nice clean up and she's going to run super smooth again. Okay. And finally, events. We have multiple events going on in the next couple of months. And for all of that information, you can visit our website on the following link.